Welcome to 80s Music Exposed. I am Henry.
I'm Chris, and we have Megan with us full time. Hey, Megan.
Hello,
For,
unannounced.
Unannounced.
for our very special episode, right?
Okay, Megan,
Definitely.
this is the first one that you've joined us on the Zoom, so we can see you for the whole
Yeah,
episode. What did you think of that intro? What do
I
you think
thought it
of
was
our
good.
intro, lady?
It was solid.
It was solid. Okay.
Yeah, I mean it had a bumpy start.
Yeah, right. I'm so used to that girl's voice, I don't think about it until we had a guest with us, and then I was like, oh my god, that sounds kind of weird. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah, the
I think it
voice
sounds
always
goofy.
throws me off a little bit too, just because she's like an 80s like commercial voice. Like she hits it, but it's a little when you're not expecting it sometimes.
she did. She nailed that. So Henry, I don't think we talked about that since the first episode, but we asked them to have somebody that sounded like they were on the night flight program.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
nailed it. She nailed it. So we're happy with that. Okay, so
Yeah.
this is a special episode. Henry, why is it a special episode?
So, this is a classic album show. We periodically through the year, we've picked like 4 of these to review, to blow a whole show out discussing just one album. The first one we did was The Message for Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. And this record is for, what is it, guys?
Nebraska
Bruce
by
Springsteen's Nebraska, yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's a record, Henry, we're probably all three a little more familiar with than The Message, I would think, going into it. At least I know
Yes.
I was. I didn't do as many copious notes on this one because I thought I had a better handle on it.
So
It shocked me at first, I guess, right off the bat. It shocked me that it came out in 1982 at first glance. I felt like it was later in the 80s, but
Yeah, I always thought for some reason that it was after Born in the USA. Like I thought he did it
really,
as kind of like a palate cleanser, but
I
no, it
agree.
was like well before that.
I totally agree. And I think maybe it's just because I got to it after Born in the USA. So
Yeah. I don't think this was a huge record. Like I don't know what the numbers were on it in terms of
so
sales.
what I read was that it made it to number 3 on the Billboard 200, right?
I mean, he's a pretty huge artist, like especially at that time, like
Yeah.
early to mid 80s Springsteen, like one of the top artists of the decade, I would say.
sure. I would say Born in the USA is like one of the top 5 big records of the 80s. So yeah, he was
Yeah.
everywhere. Which
Well,
is
this
kind of
was
why, Henry, at the time, I really was not a big Bruce Springsteen fan. I was already starting to go into my if it's not English, it sucks kind of phase.
yeah,
And
Anglophile.
yeah.
he was so American to me and so like reminiscent in my mind with the E Street Band of like late 50s, early 60s music, which I know there's some of that there, but that's unfair. But I
I
What
had
didn't
makes me
even
really sad about you saying that
I
is
know,
I
I know.
think that there are a lot of people who feel that way. And it's really
yeah.
unfortunate because Bruce Springsteen's such a good artist, like lyrically amazing, like just very talented. And I feel like he does kind of just get people dismiss him sometimes for being the cheesy, like Born in the USA guy. You know, people just kind of take it at face value. And I don't think that that's fair. I mean, obviously he has a ton of fans, so he's fine, but still it is frustrating sometimes, especially from my standpoint as a younger person. Like people in my
Well,
generation don't give a fuck about Bruce Springsteen.
all right. So I had a question here that I wanted to ask you. That I have a fucking page full of just thoughts from the dome that I'm going to try to bring into our conversation. Right?
Sure.
Why do you think? And is this true? First of all, is Springsteen's perspective, his sort of singular perspective, has it been lost in popular music today? Like, I'm talking like romantic portrayals of the Rust Belt and the working class and that stuff. I know that you have bands like the Hold Steady that would probably claim that. I think you'd have bands like Arcade Fire that would probably
Definitely.
claim something of that, right? And admittedly, I'm talking about something that's probably not even represented on this record that so much,
No,
right?
well, I just feel
You see where I'm
like
going? Like, I don't know that anybody really represents that today.
No, and it's kind of sad. I mean, I'm not saying that maybe there is an artist out there. There probably are artists out there that have at least inspiration from Bruce Springsteen, but I think that the thing that makes Springsteen unique is that he has these romanticized versions, like these American stories, but they're also
Mhm.
very like sad and very, truthful and honest. And so it's just weird to me when people are like, "Oh, he's so patriotic." It's like, I
Mm.
mean, he is, because he's
Well,
being real about it,
in the
but
Howard Zinn kind of way. This
yeah,
guy,
not in
you
the
know what I
Toby
mean?
Keith kind of way.
Right, exactly.
So I just don't understand, like, sometimes the way people critique him. They've never even listened to albums like Nebraska. So it's like, I
So,
wish people before they made those judgments would at least give it a shot, because this record's really good. I mean,
which,
it's sad, but
so this is the record that was out right before Born in the USA. Right?
mhm,
Born in the USA is the record any listener of this show knows about.
yeah.
And that's probably the definitive sound in their minds, which has some of these kind of, I guess you might call it, I think the cheesy keyboard stuff. I think that
Yeah, it was
kind of,
poppier, definitely.
yeah, like they leaned
Especially
into,
compared to this record. Like, this
yeah,
record being right before, like, that's crazy to go from Nebraska to Born in the USA. Like,
all his stuff weirdly was about freedom, right?
mhm.
And even this one, in its twisted way, is about freedom.
Yeah, because it's
Would you
true. Like,
say?
freedom has sad stories sometimes. Like, freedom, it's not it's not always what people envision, especially when they think of America, Bruce Springsteen,
Yeah,
apple
freedom.
pie, like
Yeah,
all that
freedom
shit.
doesn't always
Like,
mean joy.
yeah, it's
It
a
doesn't.
no, really,
You know.
very, very rarely, I would say,
So
there's some joy, but
I think that the people need to. So basically, what makes this record special to listeners really is that the whole album was done primarily on January the 3rd, 1982. Right, recorded to demo on a Tascam 4-track. Right,
I was gonna say,
which,
didn't he do it really bare bones?
yeah.
Like, yeah.
Chris, do you remember the Tascam Porta studios that we used to play with
Sure,
back in the day?
sure.
I mean, it's basically the first iteration, like a previous iteration, like 3 back. He did the whole record on that.
Yeah, he
His
did,
demos.
and then he ran it through an Echoplex, which gave it that reverby sound, which I think for me is what sets it apart, because it almost takes it into like a dreamlike state. It's got
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
weird hazy feel to it. For me, um, where my starting point was where I said at the beginning, but then I had an older brother who was like, "You need to hear the cool Bruce Springsteen record,"
Mhm.
which I'd never.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, and then this one blew me away. It had that dreamy quality, but also I'd never really been a lyrics guy up until that point. And this album tells stories, and I guess the stories really appealed to me at the time too, because they're like murder ballads at the beginning. So then I'm
Mhm.
interested more than just the. I'm like, I didn't think Bruce Springsteen, the guy that sang, Born in the USA, is just doing murder ballads. This is fucking
Mhm.
awesome. It kind of reminds me. It's almost David Lynchian to me, like
Yeah,
it.
because it has
Mhm.
like a ghostly
Yes.
kind of feel, like you're listening to stories from these years that have gone
Yeah.
by,
Right. And
which is
so,
really cool.
yeah,
Like,
for me, it
It,
changed my whole perspective on Springsteen. And it also changed my perspective on, I had heard some of this, a lot of what I had heard about Springsteen before as this point as well was this comparison to he's the new Dylan. And for
mm.
mhm.
me, Dylan was always hard to find a way in because his lyrics are so much more vague to me. Like they're not upfront.
Mhm.
What I love about Bruce is he's telling, like, at least on Nebraska, he's telling straight ahead stories. Like to me, it was like, oh, he's for the common guy like me. I can understand right off the bat what he's singing about. But man, it was so cool that, and I didn't know it at the time, but this adding of this echo sound, this reverby sound, I think changed it from just being a folk album into this really great thing.
Did you guys read Springsteen's autobiography at all?
I
I
just
have not,
read,
but I know what you're talking
I did
about.
read the memoir just for this part. I haven't read the whole thing. I read what
Okay.
talked about Nebraska.
Well, it's really good because he talks about actually like, Dylan was a big inspiration for him. But I think that, I mean, Dylan was so huge and like he was just, he hit at the perfect time, in the 1960s. It fit very well. So I can see like why a lot of artists in Bruce Springsteen's age group were very inspired by Dylan. But I think Dylan purposely, he always seems very detached. Like,
Right.
like not connected. Like even at concerts, like I've seen Dylan before and he just walks out on stage and doesn't say anything to anybody, like doesn't say hi. But like Springsteen is more personable and I feel like more open and definitely like you said, like
It's
he's
total.
just
So I watched videos of this guy prepping for my talk with you, and I could not believe he was in his 30s. I mean, the guy threw himself at the music like
oh totally. There's
I've never
100%
seen
commitment.
more than
Like
any punk guy I've ever seen in my life. He's completely dedicated. It lives in his body. One of the things that I read was that one of the reasons he even started making music was because it was the only time that made him feel good.
mm-hmm.
And
You
I
can
could see,
tell.
yeah, it was self-medication. I mean,
Mhm.
like at its root. And so here what happens with Nebraska is he falls into a depressive period. He's 32 years old, which puts him about 10 years older than Robert Smith was at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So Robert Smith did Pornography, his depression record
Mm-hmm.
with The Cure.
I thought you were just
This
going to
is
say Robert Smith did pornography.
but that's his like deep depression album.
Yeah, I know.
And this is Springsteen's depression album at age 32 in the same year, both two different ages. But one, like Chris would have said, hey, the Robert Smith record sounds like a 23-year-old person wrote it. I can't put myself in anymore. This record, I can understand and feel, probably because he's a little older.
It's also neat because like what you're saying too, now looking back and again, I'm different now than I was in the 80s. I much like all of his catalog, but it is kind of like a palate cleanser because it's almost like the difference between The River and Born in the USA is Nebraska. It's like The River is like the E Street Band getting sadder, and then Nebraska, he cleans it all out, and then bam, they just hit you with this 80s pop.
See, yeah, so in my mind, I feel like he had a meeting and said, okay, all right, guys, here's what I'm going to do. I'll give you a record that will sell 15 million copies. It will go 15 times platinum, I guarantee it. But to get it, you're going to have to put out this record that I put out on a 4-track.
And I wish it was that calculated, but
well, was this even like an E Street Band record though?
Yeah, so
it was supposed to be.
Here's the thing.
Okay, because I was like, isn't this a Springsteen solo record technically?
But so
you put it in front of him.
He did the demos specifically for the next album with the band, and he gave the demos to his manager and said, "I don't know what to do with these yet. I think they're for the band, but they kind of don't sound like they're working for me."
Not a lot of room for saxophone on Nebraska.
Well, and the interesting thing is they gave it a shot. So there is infamous. There is called the Electric Nebraska Sessions.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look that up.
But they've never released it. The closest you can get is he did do a live concert with a full band, but he's never released the sessions. The funny thing is, he says they are the way they were meant to be. There's no reason to release it. This is the way they were meant to be heard.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. The drummer, the E Street Band drummer, said the sessions were dope. He's like,
wasn't this at Wines? I don't want to say Weinstein because I feel like that's obviously I'm just thinking of Harvey Weinstein, but it's something like that.
Yeah, I feel terrible.
Maybe I don't remember. But I like one of my favorite like Bruce Springsteen songs, which I think it might be a cover. Atlantic City.
Max Weinberg, geez.
Yeah, Weinberg, close.
Weinberg really likes it, but I kind of did. You guys get that feeling though? Like, so researching this, I was kind of like, I can almost hear it with the East. I'd almost like to hear what it would sound like full on.
I bet it's not
bad. The first bit. Okay, so if Atlantic City maybe.
Yeah.
Like that song is the standout probably could have been a rock track. In fact, check this out. When I heard the band album Jericho in the 90s and heard the song Atlantic City, I said, okay, the band kicked out Robbie Robertson and they did this record in the 90s and they pulled out this great song. I can't believe they wrote this. Nope. It wasn't until later when I listened to Nebraska and I'm like, oh shit. They didn't even
So
write
is
that.
it Bruce Springsteen's song originally then?
Yeah, he wrote
I
it.
don't know. For some reason, I always thought it was a cover, and I don't know why I thought that. Like,
And so the band presented it and do this like really great job with it. But to my mind, they make it they silify it a little bit too much.
and it's such a sad sounding song. Like, it's really hard to imagine that being like kind of a more upbeat rock song. Like, I don't think it would be bad to make it a little more rocking, and I'm sure Bruce Springsteen has done that like in live performances. I'm hoping to see him in concert if we ever have concerts again.
Right.
Like,
It's coming back someday.
Well, and
I think so.
I guess Atlantic City is the like most well-known
Probably.
track, and it's a little bit
Yeah.
upbeat. But for my money, Mr. State Trooper and Nebraska, the title cut. The title cut to me just drew me in because it's so obvious about it's about a true story, but about like a killing spree, a Midwestern killing spree that a young couple went on, and you're like, that just blows my mind that Bruce Springsteen did that. You know what I mean? And it's got that haunting sound again. So I was drawn in a lot more by that. Atlantic City to me is the one that sounds the most like, yeah, that's probably a demo for an E Street Band album.
It's the unique way that he approaches the subjects on this. He sets up a world really where like it catches us by surprise, right? When it's laid out before us, the decisions that the character makes seems obvious when we're in it, like we're in the song. But if we're outside of it, you know, if we were to just lay it out dispassionately, it wouldn't make any sense. And it's just the way he puts words together. You totally understand where that person, the perspective of that person, not only this song Nebraska, but in all of these songs, he adopts the situational thing of the character inside the song and the way that the lyrics play out. Like, did you catch the way that he would change the way verb tenses went to match the characterization of the person? And that's like,
oh yeah,
that's
like
genius shit.
Well, that makes it sucks you in more because it's more believable. Like, you're hearing it from that person's perspective. It feels like, you know, like it's not even Bruce Springsteen anymore. And this record, like, this was actually the first like Bruce Springsteen record that I got on vinyl because my dad had it on vinyl, and he like gave me his records pretty much. I think he kept some of them, so he gave me the Bruce Springsteen record maybe he doesn't love as much, which was fine. So, but this was kind of like my earlier Bruce Springsteen experience, which I think is like the reverse for most people. I mean, I had heard Born in the USA and Dancing in the Dark and stuff before, obviously. Was very familiar with that, but like I had never really listened to a full Springsteen record until like Nebraska and The River. Then like those records kind of got me into him, I would say.
Interestingly enough, not to geek out too much on the writing, but Atlantic City is the only track on the record where he does not explicitly describe what happens, what the protagonist is going after. So he never really says what the reason he's going to Atlantic City is.
Even then, it feels like a story, though.
Right, and a lot of people assume that he was going to join the mob, and there is reference to a person called the Chicken Man at the beginning of the song. I
love that. Love that first line is like the best.
That's a real.
Yeah, because it's like, what? Like, I've never heard those words strung together before. Like, and it sounds just right.
Was a real mafia boss at the time in Atlantic City by the name of Philip Testa, and that was his nickname, Chicken Man. So, but the other songs, all the other songs, you explicitly know what's happening with the protagonist. I've read a lot of where people have said they think that might be what makes Atlantic City subconsciously a lot of people's favorite song because it doesn't give away the story as much as the others do. I don't know
I think it's like kind of, I mean, it's a great theme in Springsteen is running away or getting away from things. And that's like always the sense that I've gotten from that song. It's like if we're just going to go to a different place and it's going to be better. Like, and that is like
It's
a
still,
theme.
yeah,
I would say.
making it still cars, like
hmm
all over these, there's how many cars are mentioned on this record?
Yeah.
Like, and it's probably a theme, right?
No, definitely. And I would say that's probably like in his whole career,
Yeah.
really. I mean, even Born to Run, I mean, it's right there. Like, but I love that. I think everybody can relate to that feeling.
Just this, I think might be a good point just to give a few nuts and bolts for people that don't know. This is the 6th studio album, and I put studio in quotes because again, it was done on a 4-track machine from Bruce. All instruments on the album he played himself. It's currently on the, I don't know if you guys knew this, but Rolling Stone has redone their 500 greatest albums of all time list to include.
I heard they did that. But.
Yeah, so it moved up. It's now at number 150. On the old list, it was number 224 of the greatest albums of all time. It got a 10 out of 10 on Pitchfork when they went back and re-reviewed it. And of course,
that's shocking.
I know, right? It's an all music 5-star album. It was interesting that the angle that Pitchfork took, which I hadn't thought about till they took it, was that this album kind of predates and I don't know how to say it. It kind of heralds the coming of people going back in the early 2000s and late 90s, the DIY 4-tracking and
very much so.
Yeah, like, bedroom music and doing music without going to a studio, which I hadn't thought of at the time. So I think that was the angle they kind of went in on and how great it was for that.
Yeah, I kept thinking about Sebadoh. Probably love this stuff.
Well, even Paul Westerberg is very like, I think now when he records stuff, it's always like in the basement, and he was about that. But after Bruce Springsteen, definitely.
What did you guys think?
Go ahead, Henry.
What did you guys think about that Johnny 99 song?
That one's my least favorite song on the album. But again, I think it's neat because he never meant for this to be an album. So you know what I mean? Like he probably put down a couple demos that he were like, this might not make it, but I'm putting all the demos down,
I liked it a lot. I don't know why.
I like Johnny 99. Because I think that you need a little bit of an upbeat song, you know what I mean? And that's
I thought it was scary.
But the sound of it, it's got kind of like a bounce to it.
It's definitely got more of a
yeah.
That
and I think
kind
that is
of 60s vibe thing, very kind of punky element to it.
Yeah, I liked it a lot, and I thought that it broke up the record well, because like there was a point like when I'm listening to this record, sometimes depending on the mood that I'm in, like it can be a little too dark sometimes, which again, that's weird to say about a Bruce Springsteen record, but it is kind of sad. And like if I'm in a super sad mood, it's like maybe not Nebraska tonight.
Right. Yeah, this is maybe not this one. Yeah,
I think State Trooper might be my favorite song because it sounds like Suicide. You guys know that band Suicide?
Right. Well, my exposure, Henry, and I think maybe yours as well, with that song, I came backwards again from the Cowboy Junkies cover.
Oh yeah,
me too.
So I deep dive. I listened to that a lot more before I'd heard the Nebraska version, and it's even slower and more dirgy. So I really loved that. And then I saw the movie too. Of course, there was a movie made from the Highway Patrolman song. I didn't know if you guys knew that.
When was
that
it
the
made
Sean Penn movie?
Yeah, it's a Sean Penn movie that I'd seen the whole movie and didn't know it came from a Bruce Springsteen song, but it comes directly from Highway Patrolman, which, wow, think about what kind of impact if you wrote a song and Sean Penn was like, fuck that, that's my movie. I'm going to make a movie about that.
And the thing about that Highway Patrolman thing is it's full of like just fake shit, like stuff that he made up,
right?
And things that could not have happened in the real world. I wrote some of them down. Like I must have gone 100 through Michigan County. There ain't no Michigan County.
Right.
A man turns his back on his family. He ain't no good. presumably it's Ohio. When he said, "I seen a Buick with Ohio plates, and behind the wheel was Frank." He was going into Canada. Ohio and Canada are separated by Lake Erie.
But it sounds believable.
But it sounds cool. And that's the great. And there's another in the same song when the guy was playing with was imagining him and Frank and the woman Marie that he married dancing together, right? They were listening to an imaginary song that nobody can find existed at the time, called "Night of the Johnstown Flood." That somebody's written it now, like a band went back and wrote the song that Bruce referred
Isn't that
to.
crazy?
I know.
But it all makes sense in like a Lynchian, like in the Bruce Springsteen world that he's created. Like this sounds like the Midwestern nightmare that he created.
Well, because it sounds so like it's very believable, nondescript names, like very just normal life shit. And so you don't expect that it's not made up. And that's why when you find out that it's made up, it's like, oh, like that makes it even more interesting because he made you believe that it was real.
Yeah, and it's also, for me, I got to give him kudos because I think this album transcends his whole stereotype of he's so Jersey Northwestern or Northeastern, like upper, and it's like this. He nails the Midwest. You know, like to me, that's
I view him as being Midwestern.
Right. Yeah,
being from somebody from the Midwest, like
isn't that weird?
Yeah, like I don't see him as a Jersey guy. Like it's so weird.
Indianaing Mellencamp he's like beating him at his own game.
Totally.
Yeah, it's really great.
Did you guys see a similarity in this? And it's hard for me to say this because it's not like I'm seeing chicken and egg, but when I listen to it, I can't help but think of John Prine somehow, because
that's fair.
Prine had this way where he would write songs with simple chord structures. Like with Nebraska, a lot of this is 3 chords, 3 or 4 chords.
When you can tell it's somebody alone, like in their basement or so, it just sounds like a normal guy, like singing some of these songs, but it's Bruce Springsteen. But that makes it cool. And the pitchfork thing, that makes that make even more sense. And I guess I haven't really looked at it from that angle before either. Like, because this was 82, like that's super early for something like that, I think. But I also wasn't born until 1992, so what the fuck do I know?
So I did read an interview where he was talking too about his process, and I think I'd seen a documentary about Born to Run where he said up until this point his process was always to write in the studio, and it was so inefficient because he would write while they were all trying to work. Yeah, and they would go in and he would write and he would get something, and then it would take a month to try to record it, and then they'd go home and then they'd do it again. And so he's
notorious for being a perfectionist too.
Sure. So this time he was like, I'm going to actually demo stuff before. And it's weird how that change of process probably brought this about as much as a conscious decision on his part. Just making himself, like you said, Megan, like sit in a basement with a 4-track recorder as opposed to having all the guys around in the studio, changed the whole process as much. I like to think of it more in that as like a happy accident than I like to think of it as like a very calculated move on his part, if you know what I mean.
Well, it doesn't sound like it was calculated.
It doesn't. I can't find anybody speaking otherwise. In fact, I mean, Megan, correct me if I'm wrong, from what I heard about the biography, this is like glossed over a lot. Like it wasn't really dwelled on a lot. Am I right?
No, like I wouldn't say there really wasn't, like it was more about his life. Like it's more like obviously the music is a part of that, but it wasn't like he wasn't going like album by album, like the experiences necessarily tied to that specific album. Like a lot of it was just about like his personal life and how he like struggled with depression a lot, which I never knew. Cause it's like, you just don't expect people like Bruce Springsteen to be depressed. Because it's like, you're so talented and you've done so well, like you found so much success, but he's still a normal person in that regard. So it's a long book, but it was a good read.
So he was abused by his dad, from what I understand, right?
I think it was more, I don't recall any specific like horrendous physical abuse, but I think his dad was a dad of that time, like
Yeah.
very emotionally unavailable, like very detached and mean. Like, I
So
don't think that
yeah,
that was probably very uncommon in those days,
I was
but
reading, that song, and I know we're kind of skipping around. I'll just refer to some of the songs. Uh, the one "My Father's House," right,
mhm.
where he sets up this imaginary thing where his father's place is a place of refuge, right?
Yeah. I know he grew up very poor. Like he
And
didn't come from
I
money.
felt like this is his trying to reconcile the broken relationship that he had. Is that I read something where he said he he loved me, but he couldn't stand me.
Yeah, they didn't
And
have
when
a very good relationship.
they would call him, he called him an outcast, weirdo, misfit, sissy boy. And
Yeah,
so
but at that time, like
yeah,
the age that
this
his dad
probably
was, that's exactly what I would expect,
yeah.
unfortunately. But
It's the saddest song, of course, that resonates with me is like when he in the song when he finally makes his way out to the dad doesn't live there anymore, so it's more desolation and hurt and wounding in there. But weirdly enough, like at the end of the album, there's this song called Reason to Believe. And I feel like that seems like some sort of Midwestern song to get out of the tunnel. Like I feel like he was saying, "Oh boy, I gotta do something kind of thin. I need to give us a path back to happy."
and that's another big Springsteen theme throughout his career is hope.
Yeah,
Like, and
yeah,
that's something that especially, oh my God, like in times that we've been in like 2020, like stuff
hmm
like that, like it is after every, like all this depressing shit that happens, it's just nice to feel that sense of hope. And that's something that I really appreciate about Springsteen is he doesn't leave you down on the ground. Like he kind of tries to lift you up a little bit. Some people probably find that cheesy, but I think that's good.
Let's switch gears a little bit here, guys, and let's go around and talk about our personal favorite song from the album and why.
okay.
Go ahead, Henry.
Oh, you're gonna put me on the spot?
Well, I'll go. I can go first.
Uh,
My favorite is "Mansion on the Hill." Surprisingly, uh,
Really?
and yeah, and I think the reason is it resonates so well to me now because it's really about the haves and the have-nots. And
mm,
the part about that song that I love is he never specifically blames the character. Never says anything openly bad about the people at the mansion on the hill, but it's obvious from the situation that everyone else in the town works at the broke down factory and has nothing except for the folks that probably own the factory up on top of the hill. But it's so subtle because I think a lot of people, it's one of those songs you might listen to and just be like, you don't even hear that in it unless you're really
mm.
into it deeply. But I think it so resonates today with
Oh my
have
God,
and the have.
so much so.
Yeah, yeah. So I, of course, when I was younger on first listen, I always liked State Trooper, but of course I had an in with the Cowboy Junkie song. But going back to it this time, I really enjoyed Mansion on the Hill.
My favorite one is Highway Patrolman, right? Um, Mostly because it's like I like that it's a whole story arc. I think that I like the way he changes his English to match the imagined vernacular of that guy,
Mhm.
and imputes that with a certain set of values that he probably knows exists with people that live there. Um, and the compromises that people make and the strange decisions, the weird conflicted things that people go through. He let Frank go because a man turns his back on his family. He ain't no good. You know? And I just I felt like it's this fully formed fantasy fantasy narrative that was just like perfect.
What I love about that song in particular, like you mentioned, like these different kind of morals And I think that people really, really would love to be able to put bad and good in clearly defined boxes.
Yes.
But like that is not the way life is. And like nobody, like everybody has bad qualities and bad things that they've done along with good things that they've done.
Right.
And for some reason people don't like that. Like I don't know, but it's so
like the idea
they don't
of
like the truth, I guess.
Well, I mean, in line with what you said before we went live, like on the mic, you know, like there are things that people are a mixture of different things. They're not all good and all bad.
Mm-hmm. And that's like, I have to pick two favorite songs of this record because I can't pick just one, because Highway Patrolman is one of them, because like you said, I mean, it's just such a good story.
Yeah.
Like the way it's performed adds to the effect of it. And I love anything where it kind of like twists people's perspectives on good and bad. I love stuff like that just because it's such like, that's real life shit. And I like that. And then Atlantic City, I think, because I mean, we've talked about it already, but like that song, it's just great. It's very sad, but also inspirational sounding. Like it just kind of gets you pumped. Even though it's very quiet. It's this is a really good record.
Even though like State Trooper makes me want to do something wrong.
Yeah.
You know, it makes
me kind of dark. It's the dark underbelly.
It makes me want to go do something bad.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's a really great line in it. It goes, maybe you've got a kid, maybe you've got a pretty wife. The only thing I got's been bothering me my whole life.
Like, ooh, that cuts deep.
You just know that the shit, whatever happens to this guy, you know, if he gets stopped by the cops, some shit's gonna pop off.
Mm-hmm.
Like for
and
real.
That happens every day, probably. Like, all of it's very resonant, even though this came out in 1982. It's all very like, I think it's important messages for today, which is nuts because it's been a long time ago, like, but it's still very relevant. And I think that not a lot of people can say that, especially a lot of records that we've listened to recently,
right?
Where it's like, Jesus Christ, like this has not held up well, but this record, it's timeless.
Henry, on Highway Patrolman, I'm going to make an analogy for you. Why? Listening to it, I thought Henry's going to love this song because, stick with me here. There is a movie called The Three Burials of Melquiades Estrada. I don't know. It was an indie film in 2005, but it had Dwight Yoakam in it as a sheriff. And I am so convinced that he based his character off of the sheriff in Highway Patrol.
Really?
He's got that exact right, like, he has a moral code, but he's also kind of exasperated and knows the futility of what he's doing, but he's trying to hold on to something. And I know Henry loves Dwight Yoakam when he acts because it's one of
I love it.
Played, right?
Oh, love it.
Also, the interesting part about State Trooper is I agree with you guys. I can hear the, like, if you stop him, he's gonna pop off. Like there's almost this fury bubbling underneath. But it's interesting. He wrote such a great song. To me, the Cowboy Junkies interpretation sounds like desperation. Her version makes it sound like if she gets stopped, it's just over for her. Like she totally if she doesn't make it, she's just going to give up. And I love how and I think that's why there's a lot of bands that cover songs from this album. He wrote songs that could be interpreted 20, 30 different ways, which is
amazing.
A mark of a master songwriter. It's not just his.
Especially when there's, like you guys have mentioned, like some of these songs have very specific stories.
Right.
Like, you know, and like you hear the whole story, but the fact that just the way that you sing it or the way that you perform it can totally change the message of
Johnny Cash did 2 of them.
Right.
Yeah.
He did 2 off this album.
Which ones did he do?
I can't remember. I didn't write it down.
I'm assuming probably Highway Patrolman being one.
So.
Let's see.
Because that's I can see Johnny Cash being like, fuck, I wish I would have written that song.
Right.
Which that's pretty cool if you can get somebody like Johnny Cash to say that about one of your songs.
I know that it's been covered, songs from this album have been covered by everybody from Los Lobos to Sunvolt, Amy Mann, Cowboy Junkies, Emmylou Harris, Henry mentioned the band, Steve Earle, Kelly Clarkson.
Oh, yeah?
What song?
Yeah.
Nebraska. She did Nebraska.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to look that up.
Yeah.
I think she was trying to change her image to a more serious image, so she picked Nebraska to try and help her do that. Also, one of Henry's favorites did a cover. I haven't heard that yet, but Billy Bragg covered
Did he really?
off this record. Yeah.
I
So
love
Why
Billy
not?
Bragg. I didn't know that you loved Billy Bragg.
Love him. Love him.
Yeah, I think he's awesome. And I'm glad he's still alive.
Yes. Maybe you'll do another record.
Yeah, he's really cool. He's still very active when it comes to music, like, which I'm glad. Like,
Did you guys hear that, every time I was reading about this album, I kept hearing about Badlands?
yes,
All these people that covered. Did you guys listen to that?
I listened
I
to
didn't.
parts of it just to hear the bands I liked. I kind of cherry picked.
Chrissy
I think
Hynde
that-
apparently did one.
well, isn't Nebraska the song? Is that based on the, was it Charles Starkweather or
It is,
whatever? Like
right.
the teenage couple?
Right.
Yeah, that's what I thought. When you said Badlands, it made me think of the movie Badlands.
Movie
which is-
Badlands, right.
Did y'all watch that?
I haven't seen it. I want to watch it because it looks like it's a beautiful movie.
It is great. It is an amazing movie.
Is it Sissy Spacek?
Sissy Spacek and
Martin Sheen.
Martin Sheen.
Oh,
And Martin Sheen
okay.
is really young in it, and he is great in it.
He does a good crazy.
Right.
That's Terrence Malick, right?
Yeah, it's a Terrence Malick film. So
It's an actual good Terrence Malick movie, probably.
yeah, it feels a lot like my favorite Terrence Malick, the Thin Red Line.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm gonna
but
make it a point to watch that.
Because I've been meaning to watch Badlands because I've heard people talk, and I have a big TV for the first time in my life, so I can watch things and enjoy just the way it looks. So I think that movie would look beautiful.
Supposedly, he took that imagery of a girl doing a baton or something.
Yep.
Directly from that movie.
right.
Interesting.
So, do y'all know why they call him the boss?
I think it's mentioned in the book, but it wasn't anything. I think didn't the E Street Band guys just call him that? Like,
Allow me to tell you.
okay.
He had-
I knew not to say anything.
Set up.
Henry was going to tell me.
Yeah.
He had a habit of collecting the money, like when he was playing at the bars and stuff, and distributing it evenly out to the bandmates. So he's like the boss, paying everybody.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because Peter Hook, he wrote a few books actually, and his book about the Joy Division years, he talks about how he was in some like used clothing or vintage clothing shop, whatever, and there was this person in front of him in line buying these like beat up cowboy boots, and he was kind of like trying to haggle with the store clerk about the price and everything. And then the guy turns around and it's Bruce Springsteen. And Peter Hook was just like, I can't believe this guy who's so rich was like haggling over the price of these used boots. It's like that totally, I mean, he just doesn't seem like a really grand living guy. Like, I'm sure he has nice stuff, but like, like paying the band and everything, like he seems like maybe he was kind of a stickler.
But like the house that he was living in, one thing about it, when you start looking at the because I was kind of attracted to trying to figure out where he lived or where he recorded this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was living in a rented house in Colts Neck, New Jersey. But now, if you know anything about Colts Neck, apparently it's a pretty hoity-toity area. Like, you know what I mean?
Doesn't sound like it would be.
So in my mind, he was in one of the, like a small cottage, like maybe 800 square feet or less, or something like that. And he did live like in Long Branch, New Jersey during like the Born to Run time. But I don't think this house in Colts Neck was like a tiny cracker box, you know?
Well, no, and like, hey, why should it be?
No, I'm just saying, like, just to skewer your perception a little bit. I don't think it was a small place.
I think he definitely lives well, but I think he's also probably just kind of cheap with some things. I don't know why.
The River was a platinum album, and the one before that was he had played 140 shows the previous year. So the guy was probably tore up, tired. No wonder he was depressed. Probably if he was doing drugs and all, it probably, pulled
he
all
never really did a
serotonin
lot
out
of drugs.
No?
Like, I don't even think he smoked a lot of pot. Like, I think he smoked pot, But I was kind of shocked by that in the book. Like, really, he wasn't into drugs, which maybe that's why he's still around. I don't know. Some people, like, I don't think he ever burnt himself out. He was more addicted to working, it seems. Because somebody who performs that many shows, I mean, that's crazy. And they're all super long. Like, he's known for his, like, really long concerts, even now when he's, like, 71.
He probably has that weird same kind of dragon energy that Robert Pollard has.
Dragon energy.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it.
I respect it.
Yeah. Like, you gotta, Pollard just writes and writes and writes and writes and writes, puts record out. Bruce Springsteen, ain't nothing for him to do a 4-hour show.
I wish I could be at that energy level ever, and I'm just not. Yeah. I have the energy level of a sloth.
I don't either. Well, guys.
Oh, and maybe Henry, he was sitting with using all his money that he earned from the river. He was one of the first guys to have a super dope VHS player, and he was watching the Martin Sheen movie Badlands at home.
Nice.
That's true.
And decided to start doing his demos, get off his ass, and stop watching movies all day, and start working on the next record. Maybe that's what happened.
So, I mean, he was 30-something when this record came out. He is now 71 years old.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention, I did want to mention the album "The Ghost of Tom Joad."
Good, yeah, that's a good mention, especially because it's similar, I would say, to this record.
And I think I read, and this may not be definitive because I glanced at it, but he said that was his attempt to try to recreate the same kind of magic as Nebraska, and that's what convinced him that Nebraska was kind of like a one-off thing that he didn't think about.
Yeah.
He thought he thought too much about the Ghost of Tom Joad. Trying to recreate doesn't work,
Yeah. I mean,
and I'm not saying that's a bad album. I'm just saying I don't think it's as good as Nebraska.
Yeah, it's funny how Bruce Springsteen, when he talks about like being critical of some of his work, and it just makes me look at myself, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Like, he's like saying, like, The Ghost of Tom Joad, which is a great record, not as great as Nebraska, but it's just crazy to hear Bruce Springsteen be like, meh, like, kind of dismiss it a little bit.
Yeah, it'd be like Prince, and Sign of the Times is great, but Purple Rain was okay.
It's like, okay, well, what have I done with my life? Nothing compared to that.
Right. No, I get it too, but I can kind of see where he's coming from, because I do think Nebraska's a better record, and maybe that is the difference. Maybe The Ghost of Tom Joad seems a little forced because he's like, I want to try that again. I want to do that again.
Well, and I think what you guys mentioned earlier about the timing of Nebraska is what makes it so perfect too. And I don't think you can recreate that. Like, that's just the time that you're in. You're between the river, and Born in the USA hasn't come out yet, So, like, the fact that it happened then, like, I don't think you can recreate that. Like you said, he tried, but that's after Born in the USA. With Bruce Springsteen, there's pre-Born in the USA and there's post-Born in the USA.
Right. And you nailed it, because honestly, that album is so post-Born in the USA. No matter how much he tries to be a common man, he couldn't walk out of his house without people recognizing him. He's super rich, whether he wants to be or not.
He wears the Levi's and the white tank top, and
it's hard to get into that same mind space that you were in before you were like that, So, I can see where that was a difficult thing for him to do.
I'm looking forward to, we're probably not going to do a full episode on it, but I'm looking forward to talking about Tunnel of Love, because I think that's one of my favorite Bruce Springsteen eras.
I as well. Yes, I like that
and
one.
That one just gets forgotten all the time, like more so than I would say Nebraska.
Honestly, I kind of feel like that's kind of why I like it, because it didn't get it got. What are you going to do after Born in the U.S.? I'm like, it's not going to be as big, right? There's no way.
It makes me want to listen to the other stuff past this for bits that might have been lost by the arrangement, or under that sheen of the E Street, I might have lost, just in the song or whatever.
Right.
Because after taking a deep look at this, I realized, yes, the man is he's incredibly talented. Dylan, on par with Bob Dylan or anybody else.
Well, and
Yeah,
yeah,
probably one of the best songwriters and American songwriters.
oh, I think so. And I even before this, I think just with Born to Run, I mean, and Born in the USA, you could say one of the best, but this cements it because it's so different, but it's like he can do anything. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like he could do it. He could do any kind of style if he really wanted to and put his mind to it, which is pretty amazing. So yeah, does anybody have any final thoughts on this? I keep feeling like we need to justify this record because there's a lot of people that probably don't know it. But I mean, what we've talked about already, it inspired a movie. There was a guy that wrote a book of short stories based on each one of these songs. So
Really?
yeah, and
I'm
there's
gonna have to check that out. That sounds cool.
I know, and there's over 100 versions of these songs.
I'm not surprised on that because, like
Right.
you guys said, like when somebody wants to get serious, they're gonna try to do what Bruce did, which
And
doesn't
I
work
did
for
want to
everybody.
mention,
But
maybe I'm reading into it because I like these people so much, but for me, this was also a precursor of alt country. Like to me, I see a direct line between this and the uh, last Replacements record, or the first the first Wilco records, or
oh yeah, I mean
those
this
kind
record in
yeah.
particular, I feel like it feels very country, and it's very outlaw country, which I mean I think that's some of the best country there is, really.
Yeah,
And you mentioned like justifying this record. When I talk about Bruce Springsteen, I feel like I always end up justifying Bruce Springsteen, which is weird because it's like he doesn't really need to be justified, but I do
And
think that people unfairly dismiss him, sometimes because
it's
of the
because of
cheesier stuff.
it's because of E Street and some of that stuff in the '90s.
Yeah.
Like Lucky Town and Human Nature, those things.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah,
and
nobody's
it-
perfect.
No,
we all know he gets a bad rap for Born in the USA because it's misinterpreted and it's been taken over by right wing patriotic
Yeah.
people, and it doesn't really mean that. But
Which
that's
is
not
funny.
really Bruce.
That's still one of my favorite things that like Ronald Reagan tried to use that song, even though it's like when you listen to it, it's like I don't know how you could think like this is a good song to use in support of a presidential, especially Republican candidate. It's like what?
I know,
But because it has Born in the USA.
I almost see Bruce sitting there going, "Wait a minute, maybe I should just let them keep using it," because they don't know what it means. It's like if they want to use a song that's anti them to advertise themselves, go for it.
See, at that time, people weren't into being contrarians as much as they are now. Like, people like to troll and do shit like that, ironic stuff. But I bet, like, Bruce Springsteen has too many principles, which I really respect. Like, the fact, even Tom Petty, like, recently, fucking Trump tried to use a Tom Petty song.
Right.
And I have a Tom Petty tattoo, so I was worried. I mean, I didn't think that the Tom Petty estate would do that, but I'm like,
ain't no way.
no.
Ain't no way.
Yeah, thankfully, I'm like, okay, that's what I expected. But
Hey, there's a clip, and I don't mean to, this is totally off topic, God, but there's a clip of Tom Petty, and it was right during the Southern Accents tour, right? And this was this weird kind of place where the marketing people were dressing him up in the Confederate flag, and they would they put a cloak on him and line it with the Confederate flag, and they would project it behind him and stuff. He didn't think much of it back then. He didn't think of it so much of as a racist symbol today. But after, during the thing, he actually said to the somebody threw up a Confederate flag onto the stage, and he denounced it in front of everyone, said, "I don't want anything to do with this anymore."
I really respect that.
Yeah. And so, and there is a video clip of it somewhere. If I can find it, I'll send it to you. But yeah, Tom Petty was.
Sorry, my cat just hit the rim.
You're giving me a rim shot. You're trying to tell me to shut up.
He did.
No, you're fine. I love that. Like, I don't think artists need to necessarily get super political all the time, but to just do things like that, like, that's not going to be a part of who I am, like, as an artist. Like, I'm not going to let that happen. I'm not going to let them use that song or whatever, or imagery, whatever. And I just think that shows it's like, I mean, as an artist, they have character. Like, and I hope that there's still artists like that. I mean, there are, but it just seems like a lot of shit doesn't matter anymore. And that's why I like Bruce Springsteen, because, it's important. And I think, you know, even like the nobodies in life, he kind of gives them a voice, and it's cool.
Well, that's good. That's a good note to end on. So, Megan,
Yep.
thank you for joining us for the whole episode.
Oh,
This was great.
This was
Yeah.
super fun. I could talk about Bruce Springsteen for hours, which obviously we already know because we just kind of did it. So,
Right.
but this record in particular.
Well, next week we'll be back to our regular format. We'll be covering July of 1982. And Megan, you can get super excited about talking about the Pointer Sisters and Judas Priest.
One of my favorites. How did you know?
Right? And Dexy's Midnight Runners.
Ugh.
We'll be back to.
I already know that you guys are gonna like Dexy's Midnight Runners. I can just feel it. I don't know why.
Oh, that's a good cliffhanger. I guess we'll see. So
I just feel like you will.
I honestly don't know. I don't know at this point. I haven't heard that record in a long time. So
Well, I'm putting it on the books now. That's
All
my
right.
prediction.
all right, you're on the
Okay.
record.
Based on
Noted.
nothing.
All right, guys. So Henry, you want to give us or both of you guys can give us the plugs and get us out of here.
Sure. You know, if you like our show, if you like the records we're choosing, please rate and review us on iTunes. You can listen to us on Spotify and Stitcher and Apple Podcast, and share it with your friends. You can chat us up on Twitter at 80s Exposed. You'll probably be talking to Megan if you do that, or email us at 80smusicexposed@gmail.com. My Twitter handle is @HateG. Chris, what's yours?
I don't know. At TCI Duke. Yeah.
Liar.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think I knew your Twitter handle. It's like, if I know your Twitter handle, you better know your goddamn Twitter handle.
Put me on
Because
the
I don't
spot.
even use Twitter. I don't have a personal Twitter.
I will say, I don't know if this will make the pod, but our last podcast blew the fuck up.
Did you ever figure out like
Okay, Australia
Men at Work
loves Men at
fan.
Work.
Men at Work fan.
Oh my god.
Oh,
Yeah,
Henry, thanks for mentioning that. I just want to mention to all our Aussie friends, we in December of 1982, we're covering In Excess. Okay, so hold on, just
Nice.
hang in there, and we're gonna get another Australian band on tap.
It just keeps going up and up. I don't
That's
know.
crazy. Because I
It
thought
was-
maybe it was like the YouTube thing too. But now, like, I mean, all you have to do is hashtag Men at Work and they're on it.
The top Brisbane, Queensland, Sydney, New South Wales, Melbourne, Victoria, Perth, Western Australia. Hello.
Somebody's spreading the fucking word over there.
I don't want to speak for the other two, but folks in Australia, if you want us to come, if you want to pay for us to come and do a tour across Australia, I think all three of us would happily go.
Right.
Yeah, when we can leave the United States again.
Yeah, when you will ever allow us in your country again.
We've gotten a time out.
Megan, don't bother me with details, okay? Yeah, we will
I
come to
know.
Australia, whatever it
I
takes.
know.
You guys want us.
Megan, get
Yeah,
it.
I would like to forget about a lot of things going on right now too.
Right. Yeah, so Megan, give us your social media stuff.
Sure. So my Instagram is @bastardsofyoung92, and then on Facebook, which is becoming just a fucking dumpster fire. So maybe don't add me, but it's Megan Therese on Facebook, and then the pod has an Instagram too, @80s374, and then 80s Music Exposed on Facebook as well. Which
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
yeah, it was good talking to you guys.
Yes, Megan, Chris, guess what?
What?
What's that?
I made you a mixtape.
Oh.
All right, I'm gonna add with me adding in music all over the place. We got plenty. We talked for an hour, so if I had 20 minutes of music, we got plenty of stuff.
Oh yeah, I think that was a good. I had fun talking about it because like you guys seemed a little apprehensive at first because it's like we don't really have like a formula yet. This is only the second time doing.
It was
the
freaking me
whole
out
album.
without a format. Yeah, I was totally.
Well, I did I spent like a few hours just jotting down notes for song by song because I thought if we went song by song, I want to have something to say about each one. So
I was
that
like, you
kinda
guys
helped
are
me a little
ping
bit.
ponging all over the place.
I didn't mean to.
crazy. I'm like
I was just-
control freak nature. I was like, oh my god, what are you doing, Henry? You can't talk about the last song right now.
I was trying to
That's how
guide
I operate. Whether that's good or bad, that is who I am.
I'm really interested to edit it from this. Maybe it'll be Maybe it'll be better. I don't know. Like
I don't know. I feel like
I
it.
edited
That's just the way conversations are
Sure.
sometimes. And like I'm particularly bad about that. I've had friends tell me before, they're like, you go on tangents. I'm like, I can't help it. Like that's just because I want to talk about it.
I'm sorry. I already feel like the Tom Petty tangent's gonna get cut. I'm just saying. But that was a tangent you guys went on. I liked it.
That's fine. I mean,
Isn't Bruce like a total Democrat?
I don't think. I mean, I usually
liberal?
supports the Democratic
Oh,
Party.
he lent his song to that to the convention. Remember?
I'd say he's definitely more of a liberal than a conservative. But what's funny is my aunt is super, super conservative, like weirdly religious, the fanatical kind. And she used to like Bruce Springsteen, and now she hates Bruce Springsteen because he's too liberal. So,
right. Henry, that
That's
song, The
disappointing.
Rising, remember they played it at the convention?
Oh yes. Oh
I don't mind that song. I don't mind that
no,
album.
it's the way they did it.
I know they didn't.
It was the way they did it. It sounded like a funeral dirge.
But see,
It went up. It went. Rise. You're not rising. You're going down.
Megan, I had the same thing. My dad is a huge Springsteen fan, just because of Born in the USA. But Henry and I think Henry, you went with me. We used my dad for Springsteen tickets, like third row.
Good.
Like, when he was in Charlotte, because Dad was like, "Oh, you like Bruce?" And we were like, "Yes." He's like,
Yeah, that's awesome. Those were expensive, I'm sure, too.
But to see my dad, who is the most conservative, like far right guy, standing up singing "Born in the USA" in the third row at Charlotte Coliseum was pretty amazing.
Chris Christie likes him. Chris Christie.
Because all they sing is the chorus. They don't even know what he's saying in the verses. That's what I love.
No, they don't list like.
Oh, they don't.
Yeah. It's incredible to me. I wish I could live my life like that because damn, it would be a lot happier, a lot easier if I just was able to drown things that I didn't want to hear out.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Just
so I don't get how people can do that. Like it makes no sense to me.
Just edit your life. Just self-edit everything out.
I know. It's a crazy time, and especially, I don't know about you guys, but it is very depressing. Doesn't feel very hopeful right now. We need that uplifting last track by Bruce Springsteen.
Right.
I'll say.
Please, somebody get that to happen because, I mean, it's October.
Send us out on right after Henry says whatever, his little tagline. What's your tagline? I forget until you say it.
Oh, major mixtape.
Yeah, that thing. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I will mix and work on it, and I'll talk to you guys, I guess, in 2 weeks.
All right. I guess we should develop our Australian. We should have a few. I don't know what's popular in Australia, but
I know. Maybe we should do more Australian albums. But then I was like, are there more Australian albums?
Yeah. What are those? They seem very dedicated, though, to the artists that are very popular and from Australia, like INXS. Even like the guy's been dead for how long, and people are still
love him. Yeah. And AC.
Well, Nick Cave is from Australia.
He's one of
I
my
always forget about that.
I do too. Yeah.
He seems so like serious and dour. Like he seems very English.
He sings English, yeah, to me too. Mm-hmm. You're right. Well, if we get a huge following on that INXS episode, Henry, maybe we should think about doing an Australia podcast.
All things Australia.
All the time.
I'll put a kangaroo back here in a what do you call it? What's the boomerang right back here?
There's a wallaby. I think those are from Australia.
We can do remotes from Outback Steakhouse.
Talk about
authentic Australian food, I'm sure.
Bloomin' onions.
Megan, did you watch the debate?
No, because I already know that I'm voting for Biden, and I don't need to watch it. Like, it's too stressful.
I wondered if that was what made you sad, because...
And no, I didn't. I mean, I've heard enough about it. Sounds like a shit show. No surprises there. Like, I mean...
America's sad, but...
I just don't... It's just crazy to me, like, not denouncing, like, white supremacists. Like, that's just so... Like, and there's so many people who still support him. It's like, I just don't understand.
Right, and that's what saddens me so much is that he can do that and people will still support him. It's like,
oh yeah, like, I mean, I know people who, like, they say Joe Biden's a pedophile. Like, what? First of all, there's no evidence of that. Like, people are fucking wild right now. Like, and I mean, if we're going to talk pedophiles here, I think there's evidence that Trump was or is a pedophile. You know what I mean? Like, he ran the fucking Miss Teen pageant thing. Like, Are
Right.
you fucking kidding me? Like,
And there's pictures.
so I can't watch the debates. I'm like, no.
There's
There's no
people
point.
what? What'd you say, Lon?
I said there's actual pictures of him with the guy that Jeffrey Epstein.
Epstein. Yeah.
But
Was a
these
pedophile,
people have
but-
select memories.
I know, but that whole
select
QAnon thing is
perspectives.
terrifying because it's all made.
I feel like he is gonna win again, honestly. Like, I'm kind of fucking worried
I
about that.
won't-
Like, I
I
got
won't
my
know.
mail-in ballot. Like, I'm not even gonna use that. I'm going in person because I don't trust.
I'm with you. Look, I gotta see my name come up on the tape.
Me too.
Yep, and it's
I'm
worth
not
the
gonna.
risk.
Now I'm gonna
Yeah, it's worth it.
I'm gonna vote early, but I'm voting in person. I'm not gonna mail in.
Because I don't, and it's fucked up because I don't even know who not to trust.
Right. Right.
Like, that is crazy. I've never felt that way. Granted, I've never felt the government is great. I've never felt like, oh, they're super trustworthy. Nobody fucking feels that way. But now it's like, I don't even know. Like, I don't trust anybody. And
Yeah,
that sucks.
it's just like it's
to
so
feel
far.
that way.
It's taken me a long time, me and another friend of ours, to convince Henry to come around because I think the argument that's finally got through to Henry is it's just so far off the rails. We have to try to just get back to the rail.
Oh yeah, I don't
And-
love Biden.
Yeah, I don't either. Nobody does.
I don't
but
either.
it's
Like, I'm definitely not excited to vote for him, but holy fucking shit. Like, can we, like, the pandemic alone, it's like people that support Trump, it's like you have to agree it has not been handled well. I'm not saying Hillary would have done a better job. There's no way of knowing that. But like, fuck, like, how can you feel that we need to put him in the office for 4 more years?
it's so telling.
Like-
I'm reading that book, the Rage book, the Bob Woodward book. But like you can take the book away and just if he would just publish the interviews that he did with Trump,
Yeah.
it's so evident that the man is unhinged. Like he doesn't
Yeah.
understand the actual questions that Bob Woodward's asking him. Like he can't get in the frame of mind of I'm the leader of the free world and this affects people. It's all about, well, I think I'm doing a good job and it's going to reflect well on me. And did you see my ratings at the press conferences? I'm doing daily press conferences and they're getting good ratings. And Woodward's like, yeah, but what are you doing about masks?
Yeah.
Or, like, what are you doing about ventilators? And he's like, but did you see the press conference today? We're doing a great job. The press conference got great ratings.
Well, he's delusional. I mean,
That's what I mean. It's like he's not.
I think he's more than delusional. I think he is that. But the man also, I think he deliberately was trying to provoke stammering from Joe Biden.
Even though Joe Biden's only a year or two older than
he was
fucking
like
Trump.
Biden fought a stuttering problem earlier in his life, and I think Trump deliberately interrupted like he did to try to make Biden stammer or look bad.
Yeah,
totally.
I think he was trying to hurt the disabled.
Oh, of course. I mean, that's his only tactic because he doesn't know
he's the
what
same
he's
guy that
talking
did
about.
this. He's the same guy that did this shit before, making fun of the guy, the reporter with the hand.
Yeah, and it's just like he was trying to blow up everything. Like if Biden was starting to make any good point, he would just blow it up.
Well, it's chaos. That's like his
That's
only method for anything.
That's why I'm telling you, that's deliberate.
Yeah. Oh, totally. That's been it's such a distraction from anything meaningful.
Right.
And I just hope that people wake the fuck up. Like
we got a friend, his mom, sweetest, our friend Steven, he played guitar in Galaxy Girl with us, right? And we talk, and his mother, sweet as she can be, just nice. You ever talk to her? All that. Voted for Trump last time and is on the fence now. Was going to wait till the debate, Megan.
As a woman, I find that very disturbing and very unsettling that there's women out there, especially the thing that fucking bothers me so much about Trump is he's such a hypocrite when it comes. I know he's paid for abortions and shit. Like there's no way that you never paid for an abortion and you're trying to take that away from people, regardless of your moral, whatever. First of all, politics and religion are supposed to be separate anyway, but whatever. I guess that doesn't matter anymore. It's just
the most dangerous thing about him is what you just said. He's amoral. He doesn't have a moral. So yeah, he's paid for abortions in the past, but it now it's to
Like he's
his
assaulted
benefit.
women and
But it doesn't
treated
matter.
women
See,
badly. Like,
he just blows with the wind because whatever's best for him. He has no.
And here's the thing, guys, and this is what you're going to get mad at me for, is he's made it now. So he's polluted politics going forward, even
totally.
if we win.
Well,
Well, yeah, he's already said
Because
he's not
now
going to go easy.
Right now, because
Henry,
RBG's dead, I've got to pack the Supreme Court to make sure that
cheering
abortions remain
Right.
safe and legal.
Today you sent me a text cheering that they're gonna get rid of the filibuster and pack the Supreme Court. It's
the nuclear option.
I know, but you're going full on warfare at that time. For the next 100 years, there's going to be no compromise.
But you almost have to.
I know, but that's what you're right. He's polluted it to the point where it's like you're cheering.
Now he's making me
breakdown of the system.
And
Right.
he doesn't give a fuck, and that's what's so I can't get why people don't see that at all. It's like he's destroying so much shit just so he gets to do what he wants to do and feel that like people think he's doing a good job, even though there's no way he's that delusional. Like he knows what the fuck he's doing and what he's saying.
And
like,
so many people say this thing, which is, how the Nazis, once they got rid of Hitler, they all said, no, we didn't support him. What are you talking about? And denied it. It won't be like that with this guy.
Yeah.
I don't think that would
because the only way that we can do that is if we have an actual war.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and he's already said that he's not gonna what he's gonna do, and I already fucking know it, is he's gonna say that there's been a bunch of voter fraud because people mailed in ballots, and if
he's already saying it. He's already saying it.
Yeah, he's just setting the stage for that. And at that point, I never thought I would say this. At that point, I support a complete and utter fucking revolt. Burn that fucker to the ground. Like, I don't even care anymore. And that's sad.
If he does that and you don't support that, America is done. The democracy.
Yeah, seriously.
But this just goes back to what I was telling you guys before, Mr. Stupid Progressive Revolutionary guy that says, if we were just this close, right? If RBG is the only thing that had us between this and fucking oblivion, how broken was it to begin with?
Well, and everybody, like, obviously I have a lot of respect for her and she did a lot of great things, but she should have retired under Obama, and then Obama could have put somebody else in there. I'm not really thrilled with her either. It's like, you're fucking 87, give it up.
I agree, but
before this happens.
But let's remember, fucking McConnell kept Obama's pick from the Supreme Court for 240
I know.
days. 200.
I know, but it would have happened before Trump, I think, at least, or at least at this point.
I agree.
Right now, it's critical fucking mass.
Yeah,
it's the worst timing for all of this.
I agree. I think we had a better shot if she'd retired under Obama, but everyone blames Trump. Henry, you've said this a long time. Trump's the symptom. McConnell has been the real for years. I'm talking like years before Trump. He stopped Obama, everything Obama did. He spent 4 years saying no to Obama. That was the whole strategy, and it worked.
Well, and look at, Trump, like the whole birther thing. Like, that is so racist. Like,
in the debate, too, he said this thing, Henry, I don't know if you picked up on where he was saying Obama was no good because he left 150 open judgeships and that he didn't do his job. McConnell wouldn't prove it. Oh, it wouldn't.
They wouldn't confirm him.
It wasn't that he left a bunch of open judgeships. It was like, it's like now they rewrite their own history too. Like,
oh, totally. I mean, Trump is the king of fake news because he creates the fake news.
Kind of.
But the problem is that now we all start pointing at dumb shit like, he's a fake billionaire, right? He's not a fake billionaire. We had a system that allows him to be a billionaire through fraud and shit.
Yeah.
He actually has money.
It's a systemic problem. I mean, I think a lot of his money is tied up in like buildings and stuff, so it's not liquid necessarily.
But he's not a poor person. He's not.
No, I mean, he's paying taxes and everything. Well, I guess poor people pay more taxes, so I shouldn't say that. But
that's the system, though. That is the terrible thing. He's probably right when he says, "I'm just smart about taxes," because the tax code does benefit the super.
Well, he's good at fucking people over.
Yeah, and that's what that's about. But I do think, Henry, the real question about the taxes that no one has asked yet, because the media is terrified of him,
Oh my
is
God.
it was clear from that article that he owes somebody over $400 million.
Well,
Who does he owe $400 million? Because that's who controls that motherfucker.
it's this boogaboo Russia.
It's-
Russia.
Okay, but if it
Maybe
is,
it's Russia. Where's fucking Russia?
but if it is, then they control what he does. So, like, why isn't anybody asking that question? Everyone's
Well, I
just,
think
oh, he
people have
paid
already.
$5 in taxes.
I mean, I think people have already, because you hear so much about Russia and like almost to the point where nobody wants to hear about it anymore, even if it is fucked up and wrong.
And
Like I think that they do control him a lot. I mean, they helped him win the election, you know. Like I mean, and that's probably partially why, because he's indebted to them.
so
Like
brilliant, though. It's so brilliant to get everybody just so sick of your bullshit that even though it's true, people are like, I just don't want to hear that he's owned by Russia. Fuck.
yeah. Well, and like then you just have people where he could literally some of his supporters, like he could have went on stage at that debate and fucking jerked off and been like, I love Russia, America sucks. They'd still support him. They'd be like, he's a great businessman. That's great. They're retarded. Pardon my French, but like
all the
retards.
libtards. Look at that. That's great. Yeah.
Well, then like people call me, I've gotten called a libtard before and a super liberal. It's like, I'm not even that liberal. Like, why are you like people feel the need to lump people into these extreme like categories, and it's like, no, like I don't. Like somebody was like, oh, you must think like, is Biden your hero? It's like, no, I don't really even particularly like Joe Biden that much as a candidate, but holy shit, lesser of two evils. That's the way it always is. You don't get what you want all the time in terms of candidates. Most of the
If you
time
were
you
running
don't.
a house plant against him right now, I would vote for the house plant.
Syria.
Yeah.
I would hope so. Otherwise, I would question your sanity.
Right.
Which that's sad and telling. If I'm being like, vote for the house plant, Chris. Vote for the house plant.
Yeah. It can't be worse, right?
No, we need a reset.
For sure.
Like more than ever. Like otherwise, like what you said, America's dead. If he wins again, rest in peace.
I think it could be gone, which is crazy.
Yeah, I might actually, if that's the case, and I know everybody says this, but I would think like maybe within the next 10 years trying to move out of the country. Just because why live here anymore? Like if it's not going to get better for people like me.
Right.
Yeah. It'll be some kind of a civil war, I think. I think you'll have. I mean, I think it's true. I mean, countries don't last forever, Megan. They don't.
Do you want to hear? I think this is a great idea. Do you want to hear about how we should kind of thin out the herd a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
So pick the dumb people, and we all know. We know the ones now. They make it very evident. Shoot them out into space. Like use them as like tools for exploration. And don't tell them that don't tell them that they're gonna die, that they're not coming back. Just be like, press the red button and press the blue button, and we need you to go over to this side of space or whatever. And they'll complete their missions, complete their tasks, and then when they're done, just shoot them even further out into space.
So that's the solution. Get them out there, away.
All the dum-dums.
All the dummies. I like
Round them up.
Round them up.
I can provide a few names.
Yeah, right. You can make a list.
Is
Let's
this the
see
Facebook?
we'll be Nazis too. We're just going to do it in a fun way.
Right. It's going to be the fun. Yeah. We're going to make a list and put people on them and shoot on the space.
Yeah. Fine.
America. Good talking to you guys.
All right.
But anyway, so what is it like before you guys go? Okay. What is it like in your area? Like, the signs on the yards, like.
I see one Trump flag in my neighborhood.
Okay.
But like the neighborhood I live in has recently had a sort of a millennial influx.
Good.
A little bit of gentrification happening, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Across the street, we got Black Lives Matter signs all over the place. We've got the science is good and all that stuff. But in my whole neighborhood, I only see one Trump flag. I don't see a Biden. Like, I don't think people are like Biden in their yard.
Yeah.
But they are very pro BLM and science and all that stuff, and that's the yard stuff we're seeing.
Yeah, and that's a fair indicator. I feel most of the time. I'm kind of worried because in 2016 you didn't see a lot of Trump signs either, But also Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by like 3 million votes too.
Right.
So that's the whole other thing. It's like,
I haven't driven out of the city for months, but back in 2016, I did leave Charlotte, like urban area, into the county, and there were Trump signs everywhere.
yeah, it's a very rural area thing, it seems. Even in Michigan, it's like that. Which, what about you, Chris? Like in your neighborhood?
So I live right uptown, so I don't see anything Trump at all ever.
Okay.
But now I work 15 miles out of Charlotte in a tiny little town called Monroe, and it is exactly the opposite. So I'm probably the only person in downtown Monroe when I work that is not Trump, except for people of color. It's me and people of color. So it's night and day. Like where I work, I will hear all the crazy stuff. Like the day after the debate, I'll hear all the stuff that you can imagine. But then when I get back home, when I get back into Charlotte, it's the exact opposite. Like
it's so strange. Like I don't know why that's always that way too. It doesn't make any sense to me.
It's the way the whole country is, because it's almost like a stereotype. But all the big cities, which have most of the people, which is why Hillary won the popular vote, are all Democrat. And then you get out in the rural areas, and the Electoral College favors the rural areas.
Even though those are the people who have the most to lose in most cases, and they are the ones who continue to lose, but yet they almost support that.
I know it sounds ruthless, but guys like me and Henry are going to do well under Trump because we're old white men.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I'm like, I'm tired of fighting for people that won't fight for themselves.
I know.
Like they're
it's frustrating.
Their own interests,
Well, I mean, I knew a lot of people in the 2016 election. They were mad about Bernie Sanders not getting the nomination. Mm-hmm. So they did their protest vote, or they didn't vote at all. And that pissed me off. I mean, I have several friends who did that. And I mean, I'm not going to tell somebody how to vote, but like, you're a fucking idiot.
Right.
Like, thanks for what you did, basically. I mean, because Michigan, it was barely a Trump state.
Well, yeah, you're right. And it came down to that. Like a non-vote right now is basically a Trump vote.
Yeah. And it's frustrating. It's like, I know, like even Hillary Clinton, a lot of people, I think unfairly kind of, thought she was this evil person, and like, granted, I also didn't love her. I voted for Sanders in both the 2016 primaries and then these primaries. He didn't get the nomination, but I'm still going to vote. I'm going to vote for the person who I think is best suited for the job. That's like the way people should look at it, I think. But people just...
They interviewed Hillary Clinton on MSNBC right before the debate, and it was just like shocking, like how much smarter she is than either one of these bozos. You're just
because she has experience. Like, she's smart.
Could I have a person like that, please?
Please, can we have? I don't, even if she is a cannibal that eats children, whatever.
Yeah, I don't care.
I don't even care. Because I'm sure that's a rumor somewhere on the internet.
Sure it is, but I'm fine with that. Can't be.
Yeah, I mean, we can probably lose a few kids. They're not all great.
No, I know, right?
There's a few bum ones in there.
A lot of annoying ones out there. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, let's thin the herd, but let's choose the right people.
Choose the right ones. Yeah,
that should be your ticket.
Max 20.
Is your neighborhood pretty blue or what?
Now it is, yeah. Because like I used to live out in a very rural, like religious area, and typically, Catholics and Christians, they always lean Republican. So of course out there it's a bunch of like Trump signs and everything. Right. But in the neighborhood that I live in, it's mainly like Black Lives Matter. There are some Biden-Harris signs, but it's mainly like the Black Lives Matter, or it'll be like any functioning adult 2020, like one of those signs, like the comical ones. And I'm assuming it's like, well, if you get that sign, I'd hope that means that you're going to go vote and not vote third party. Like, I'm all about people voting for who they want to vote for, but if you vote third party, you're not doing anything. Like, in the way our system is, it's not doing any good.
Yeah, you're not helping me.
Yeah. You're canceling a vote out, basically.
Look, not saying
that that's right, but that's the way that it is.
I have the heart of a revolutionary, but I also have a daughter, and I need abortion to remain safe and legal.
Yeah, and it's
Like
not just
today,
abortions either.
like in the next few years, like, you know what I mean? I'm not
Yeah.
just some future state. You know,
Well, and
I'm
it's
all
not even
about the
just,
revolution, but like,
I know. Well, and it's like not even just abortions though. I mean, it's women's health care, like access to stuff like, you know, breast health, things like
yes,
that. Like, and they want to make some of the shit, like any kind of birth control, like, oh, your insurance shouldn't cover it.
Well,
That's
just
bullshit. I mean,
basics.
these are the same fucking idiots who are like, I don't want to wear a mask, so don't tell me what to do with my body. It's like, stop telling me what to do like with mine then. Like, it's so like, I just don't understand how they can't see the hypocrisy of it.
yeah, to me,
And then you don't care about people, and like, nobody should get shot by a cop. How about that? Like, unless they're really like making that happen, it's like nobody should have to worry about getting murdered by a cop.
I think
Like,
for me too, the bigger issue is not just the actual right to have an abortion. If that's on the books, then it's like you're telling half the population what to do with their own bodies.
totally, that's an invasion of privacy and space.
Right.
And it's a lot of men politically that are, you know, saying that too. But anyway, we've went off on a
My
tangent.
Megan's
I apologize.
Home. Megan, come say hello.
Hello, other Megan.
Other Megan.
It's weird to say hello when people can't.
We're just talking about the dumpster fire of
Hey.
2020.
Fine. I don't.
Put the cans on. So you can hear.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, am I on the podcast?
No, we're done. We're
Shit.
done.
Fuck this.
Not worth it then.
Hey, I'm kidding. I really like all of you.
Right.
You're totally fine.
And Henry.
Okay. All right.
That was
All
very
right.
convincing.
Yeah, I know. Right. All right, guys.
Well, I hope you guys have a good night. And it's a
You too.
depressing talk, but
It's all right. It's
We'll
good to hear
talk
your voice.
again
Good to see you.
2 weeks.
Good to see you as well. So keep me posted. The new episode's dropping tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow morning. So
Okay, I will post about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
bye, guys.
All right, bye,
Talk
guys.
to you soon. Bye.
See ya.